Hello, everybody. Welcome into Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today, we have a lot to cover. I hope everybody had a great weekend. The Olympics wrapped up yesterday. We're going to take a look, go through everything, all the major storylines for that for the U.S. Olympic team. Excuse me, as they take the title. I know there's no winners in the Olympics, but they take the title in the Olympics as far as total medal goes. We'll talk about that in segment 2. We'll take a quick look over at the preseason games from this weekend. The rookie quarterbacks in the NFL had their first go, their first NFL action. We'll take a look at that, see who had the best performance, see who had the worst performance, where we need to improve, who looks like a future star. Then we'll take a look at the AP poll. The AP poll, the first preseason poll, came out earlier today. We'll go through it, see what they had, see who's number one, see if I would make any changes before continuing our coverage of the NFL offseason. With the Tennessee Titans, taking a look at their offseason, giving them a grade, talking about everything that they did before going over their schedule and giving them a record prediction for the 2024-2025 NFL season. But before we get into any of that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat button that is right there next to chat. You can leave a tip or donation for either of those. I appreciate anything you guys do give. If you do, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Monday afternoon. But like I was saying, we are going to start off our show today talking about the Olympics. The 2024 Paris Games have officially wrapped up. It ended on Sunday. Lots of great action throughout the entire weekend, ending up in a tight race between the U.S. and China, especially down the stretch there, for who would get the most gold medals. At that point, the U.S. had wrapped up the total medal count. They finished with 126 total medals, 40 of them gold, tying with China. And it really, like I said, it really did come down to the stretch. China had a lead in the gold medal department all the way through the majority of Sunday. But right at the end, a couple of medals came in for the U.S., including one with the women's basketball team winning a gold medal yet again. Their 6th straight gold medal. They have never lost a gold medal since women's basketball has been introduced into the Olympics. It's insane. This was the closest it has ever been. I, like a lot of people around the country, had pre-counted that medal because of how dominant the U.S. women had been in the Olympics. And it's hard to overstate how dominant they have been in the Olympics. They have won, now with that gold medal game, 61 straight games. That is an insane number. 61 straight games of continued dominance for the U.S. women's basketball team. No one has touched them. They are undefeated. It is crazy to see. Diana Taurasi wins her 6th career gold medal in basketball. 6 gold medals in any sport is insane, but especially one like basketball, where not only do you have to be on the Olympic team for all of them, but your Olympic team has to win. First of all, going back to that number, 61 straight games, is hard to picture. That's practically an entire season. That's more than a season in the WNBA right there. That's almost a full NBA season of just straight victories. That is domination of the world, but we almost saw it come down in that gold medal game. The U.S. down 10 points by double digits multiple times to France, who is really emerging as one of the top basketball countries. I know we've started to see it, obviously, with the emergence of Wemby in the NBA, as well as the top 2 picks in this year's draft, and any other number of French accolades that have been coming overseas to the U.S. in NBA basketball. But the women's team, obviously, giving the U.S. the biggest scare that any team has ever given them. Not only did they only lose by 1 point, They lost by half a shoe. If you weren't watching that game, at the very end, down the stretch there, the U.S. hits 2 key free throws to, extend the lead to 3 points after coming back from down 10 points in that third quarter, which is not a comfortable position for this team, not a position this team has ever been in. But they hit 2 key free throws to go up 3 with 4 seconds left in the game. France gets a shot off. It goes in. They bank it off the backboard, a deep shot. It was a 2, not a 3. It hits off the backboard, goes in. Her foot was on the line, unfortunately. That was inches away from sending the game to overtime, and you literally cannot get any closer than that. The U.S. secures their 40th gold through there, ties China to get the medal count. But not just women's basketball won gold, men's basketball as well, and they had to overcome a lot of different adversity. And I want to get to other things that aren't basketball, and maybe we'll go over them a little bit in some other segments here. But men's basketball as well. LeBron, I mean, we know the story of this team, right? LeBron, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant put together a super team, an Avengers-level team, as a lot of people are calling it. They assembled the best in the world from the U.S. Obviously, they have to go through lots of other juggernauts of teams, and this is really the first time in the history of basketball where we can see the world has really caught up. There's times where the U.S. hasn't won gold, right? But this is the first time where the U.S. sent a super team, and they almost didn't pull it out. Steph Curry with the heroics in the semifinals and the finals. The reason that the U.S. is continued to be champions of the world in basketball there. Jokic puts up a huge fight in that semifinal game, but in that gold medal game, Steph Curry puts them away. 12 straight points on his own, hitting clutch 3 after clutch 3, including what had to be a heat check over 2 guys from the logo, basically. An insane shot to send France home. And this is going to be a fun rivalry. There's been lots of talk about what the U.S. Olympic team is going to look like in 2028, and maybe we'll have that discussion tomorrow because we do have a lot to get through here today. But this French team is going to be really good in 2028. Off of the basketball court, one of the things that I wanted to draw attention to in this Olympics, especially for the U.S., was the track. And, kind of related there to basketball, Noah Lyles, he kind of egged the U.S. on, calling them, saying, you're not champions of the world, you're champions of America. You don't come out and compete against everyone. Just I believe that was 3 years ago he comes out and says this. But this is still, this is a world event, and the track is out there, and I was really impressed by the U.S. track, particularly by the U.S. Distance runners. Now we'll get to Noah Lyles and those sprinters in a second, but the U.S. historically has not been very good in long distance running. This Olympics, they broke it. They win medals in the 400. They win medals in the 1500. They win medals in just about every different track you can. Obviously, this is not their strong suit. Usually the medals from the U.S. track come from the sprinters. You have Noah Lyles obviously getting that gold medal in the 100, a 100-meter race that was literally as close as you possibly can get. The entire field was separated by less than half of a second, I believe. And they had to go to photo finish to get the top 4, not just the gold medal, but to get the top 4. And it was all decided by a lean. It was great technical ability by Noah Lyles there to pull out the gold medal on the track, as well as in the 200. Now, the 200 is a different story, and a lot of people, a lot of NBA fans want to dog on Noah Lyles here. And to be honest, I don't understand it. I know what he said, right? I know he said world champions of what, right? They're not world champions, whatever. There's no reason to go this hard on him. What he did was almost as impressive as anything else in the Olympics. Now, I will say he pushed himself to do it, so it's on him. Noah Lyles runs the 200, wins bronze. Obviously not his best performance. At the end, he collapses, had to get wheeled off in a wheelchair. Uh, it's revealed just a couple hours later he had COVID and he ran the 200 third in the top 8 athletes in the world, the top 8 fastest people in the world. Noah Lyles with COVID is still the third fastest. COVID, obviously, respiratory disease affects your lung capacity, which is why he had trouble breathing at the end. That is incredibly impressive. His ability to race through COVID is insane. Now, do I think he should have been out there? Not for me to decide. I am not a doctor. The doctor said he was fine. I do think that that is maybe not the best decision, not only for his health, but for the health of other competitors. But that, again, is besides the point. It's incredibly impressive what he did there on the track. Moving away, getting closer to the beginning of the Olympics, I want to take a quick look at the pool. Katie Ledecky, we talked about her a little bit. She became the most decorated women's athlete in the history of the U.S. Olympics, winning, I believe, 2 golds and a silver in this Olympics. She cleaned up in the pool, of course, as she always does, doing her patented beat a whole maybe 2 laps ahead of her entire competitors in the women's 1500. It's incredibly impressive what she does in that event. Top 20 times of all time all belong to Katie Ledecky. And the last thing that I want to take a look at before we move on to our next segment here, Simone Biles is insane. At 27 years old, which doesn't sound that old, but for a gymnast is incredible longevity, getting her 7th gold medal, winning 2 gold medals as well as a silver is incredible. She's one of the most explosive athletes alive, point blank period. And it's incredible to watch her go to work constantly in the Olympics. Hopefully she has another one left in her. A 31-year-old gymnast would be unheard of. 27 is already unheard of. I mean, in gymnastics, you have girls and guys come in and at their prime of their athletic Olympic careers, they're 16, they're 14, they're not even in college. They're in high school. Some of them are in middle school. It's insane how young these girls start and how young these girls qualify for the Olympics. But congratulations to the U.S. Congratulations to every athlete that won a gold medal. It wasn't without its own controversies, and I know we didn't get into a lot of that, but it was a great Olympics, I have to say. Almost every event was extremely entertaining. There's always something to watch there in the Olympics. Let me know what your big takeaway was for these 2024 Paris Olympic Games. If there's anything that I missed that you want me to cover, we'll go over it tomorrow or maybe in a later segment. Go ahead and throw that in the comments. We're going to take a quick break here, and when we come back, we're going to take a look at some of the rookie quarterback performances from the 2024 Week 1 of the preseason in the NFL. Take a look at what the rookie quarterbacks did, who showed out, who could have had a better performance, and what we expect in the future from these guys after just one showing in the NFL. So stick around for that. We'll be right back here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. If you are just tuning in, we just did a whole U.S. Olympic 2024 recap from Paris as the closing ceremonies took place last night. In this segment here, we're going to take a look at the NFL preseason also taking place over the weekend. We had, of course, 6 rookie quarterbacks take action on the field. We'll take a look at all of them. Who did the best? Who did the worst? We'll take a look at everyone and what we expect from them in the future based off of these for their first action in the NFL. But before we get into that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can hit that super chat button. It should be right next to the chat option. If you do either of those things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else everyone else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, go ahead and leave it in the comments, leave it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Monday afternoon. But like I was saying, we are going to get into the NFL rookie quarterbacks. They saw their first NFL action today. There were a lot of quarterbacks drafted in the first round, and that's who we're going to focus on. We're going to go in draft order here, and then we're going to talk about who had the worst and who had the best. So starting off with the number 1 overall pick, the highly anticipated debut of one Caleb Williams out of USC. He makes his debut for the Chicago Bears. It was really good. It was everything you wanted to see out of him and more. I mean, obviously, you want to see some touchdowns, but leading 2 scoring drives in your first NFL action is great, and he looked like everything you wanted him to. He came out, had some zip on the ball, made all the right reads. Like I said, led the Bears to 2 scoring drives, and I cannot imagine the excitement that Chicago fans are feeling right now. Taking a look at, the briefest glimpse of social media from the Chicago Bears. It's a whole party over there, and it's just preseason. This is they're having these celebrations, the first real quarterback that we've had in forever, and I'm very excited for the Bears season off of just that. Now, obviously, week 2, what I want to see from Caleb Williams, if he gets any action there, is I want to see him, continue. Obviously, it's the preseason. He looked really comfortable, which is really the main thing that I look at for the rookie quarterbacks. You're not going to be able to tell everything from the preseason. Obviously, there's plenty of preseason performances. You can just look back to Dorian Thompson-Robinson from last year. Obviously, he was lighting up the world for the Browns in the preseason, and we saw him in the regular season, and, what that means. So it's important not to get too carried away by just the preseason stats, but if he looks comfortable, like Caleb Williams did, and he, made a lot of the right decisions, that's what you want to see. So a great debut for Caleb Williams, coming out leading 2 scoring drives on his way to another Bears victory. Once again, the Bears have more victories in the month of August, or since the All-Star break, than the Chicago White Sox. So put that one in the tally there. The number 2 overall pick in this year's draft, and quite possibly the best performance, we'll get into that in a little bit, Jayden Daniels with the Washington Commanders. Jayden Daniels didn't throw the ball too much. He only threw the ball 3 times, but he scored a rushing touchdown. And he had, in one of his 3 throws, was a beautiful deep ball down the sideline. Now, all the reports coming out of Commanders camp have been glowing for Jayden Daniels, and that's to be expected when you have a lot of hype around a quarterback. But that doesn't always happen, right? Here in the DC area, I get to hear all this coverage of Jayden Daniels, and it's all great. Jayden Daniels seems like he's going to be the next big thing in the NFL, and you could argue that he might have a better season. He might have the best rookie season of all these rookie quarterbacks, which, again, it's hard to tell from the preseason, but he orchestrated a Commanders offense, led them on a scoring drive. Again, only threw the ball 3 times. It was lots of runs, but when he did throw the ball looked good coming out of his hands. He obviously hit that big hole shot, and then he did score that touchdown as well. So very impressive stuff from him. The third overall pick in this year's draft, the New England Patriots selected Drake May. And Drake May, he didn't get too much of an opportunity. He only had 3 plays, didn't do much on offense, but again, it's the Patriots. Now, if you're going off of reports from training camp, he hasn't been doing the best. He didn't look particularly well adjusted. That can change. He'll get more reps in later games. But people are talking about the other quarterbacks in New England. Jacoby Brissett is probably going to start off the season at quarterback. Obviously, it's a competition between him and Jacoby Brissett. Now, they do have 2 other quarterbacks in that room. Bailey Zappi, who, and then Joe Milton, who has been getting a lot of love. And I brought up this name earlier in this segment already, Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Now, I'm not going to say, yep, they're the same. But he's an athletic young quarterback who's looked pretty good in the preseason. He's got a cannon of an arm. He's got all the tools. And there's no reason why. And if you just look at the tools, you could see why people say he could be this great quarterback. But you look at him in action in Tennessee, he wasn't that good. You look at him in action against, when it really matters, he hasn't really been able to step up to the plate. And now he's getting this hype again. Joe Milton is getting the hype that, hey, he might be the starter in New England. And I want everyone to just remember lessons of last season, right? Remember what happened last year. Take a quick step back. There's no reason for you to jump on the Joe Milton train just like that. You have to take a step back. You have to remember that this is the preseason. Nobody is playing their starters. 50% of the guys that are out there on the field that Joe Milton is dominating against are not going to be on rosters when the season starts. So we need to be careful of hyping up a guy like Joe Milton, because while he has all the tools, again, we just need to be careful. We don't want to, push him into conversations where he shouldn't be. But Drake May, we'll see more out of him. I don't want to come to any conclusions here. Again, he only played a couple of snaps. The next quarterback off the board, the Falcons at number 8 selected Michael Penix Jr., one of the most controversial picks of the entire draft, not because people were doubting Michael Penix. I know he personally, for me, was my QB3 on my board, but because the Falcons signed Kirk Cousins to a 4-year, $180 million deal, not even a month prior to making that pick. So it was a curious decision, but Michael Penix looked really good. There were a couple of throws that he overthrew some guys. His mechanics need a little work sometimes. He'll drop his front shoulder every once in a while, but, that's just part of his game. He was really accurate. Some of the receivers kind of sold on a couple of the routes that they ran, stopping early, or not, being an elite receiver there. Obviously, having elite receivers helps out your quarterback. But he looked really good. He played the most out of any of these rookie quarterbacks, but he did really good work for the Falcons on their number 2 offense, and there's a bright future ahead of him. I see the vision there. I see the vision. I really do. I love Michael Penix and his upside. His situation is going to be tough to swallow. He's going to be back up for at least 2 seasons there while they figure out what they're doing with Kirk. But the Falcons have a nice backup, and in a league where we're seeing records of quarterbacks playing every single season due to injuries, it's nice to have a good backup. Michael Penix looked really good in his NFL debut. Next quarterback off the board was J.J. McCarthy. J.J. McCarthy of the Minnesota Vikings really rose his stock. I know I was really low on him, but he looked good. I talked about how the only team that he would work on was the Vikings, but he didn't even have his best weapons out there, and he still looked really good, throwing for 2 touchdowns, just being really efficient. He was the 3rd most efficient quarterback of the entire week in the preseason. Now, I know that doesn't say much. Caleb Williams was the most efficient for what it matters. Joe Burrow was 2nd, but he was 3rd. So he looked really, really good. it was incredibly impressive to watch him play. And if he can keep it up, he might even steal that starting job from Sam Darnold. Not that I think he will immediately, but maybe eventually through this season. And the final rookie quarterback that I wanted to take a look at was Bo Nix. And this one's an interesting one to me because Denver put Bo Nix as third on their quarterback chart, right? And we talked about that when that news first broke. We talked about how that was kind of crazy. You draft a guy at number 12, and on paper, Bo Nix looked really good. 15 for 21, 70% accuracy, which is right along that line's most accurate season in the history of college football is what he's coming off of. I think it was 77.4% that he completed his passes at, which is not a normal percentage, right? That's not a percentage that is sustainable. As well as, just the team around him. Jarrett Stidham came in. He's the projected starter right now, and he gets taken out after throwing an interception on paper. And then you look at Bo Nix, and he doesn't throw an interception. He throws a touchdown. But that interception that Jarrett Stidham threw, and I think this is very important. This isn't about Bo Nix, but I think looking at paper versus seeing the play in action is very important to when you're scouting this. It was a dump off to Samaje Perine. He gets it in his hands, bobbles it once, bobbles it twice, bobbles it 3 times, gets 2 hands on it once again, slips out, and then it's intercepted. That is not a pass that was intercepted. The ball was intercepted 10 yards further down the field than when the wide receiver first made contact with, or the running back first made contact with it. That is one of those interceptions that I know people say it all the time. It shouldn't be attached to the quarterback. They're absolutely right. There's no way that interception should have gone on his stat line. That's just how it is. Sometimes stats need to be revised a little bit, but that's why there are other non-traditional interception stats out there. But getting back to Bo Nix, he looked good. Now, it was what we expected of him. It was a lot of little dump-off passes. It wasn't really too much downfield. He did throw a touchdown in the flat. It looked like a dangerous throw. I think if the defender was a little faster, that was a house call because it looks like he was baiting him, and he kind of floated it in. He kind of didn't put as much mustard on the throw to the flat as I think he should have. It was it looked kind of dangerous to me. So Bo Nix, while his stat line looks really good, it wasn't one of those performances where I'm sitting here like, oh my goodness, he needs to start immediately. I need to see a little more out of him. And maybe that's my bias there saying, hey, it's just the preseason, because I'm not a Bo Nix fan. I don't think he should have gone in the first round at all. But that's my diagnosis of the rookie quarterbacks. I think Jaden Daniels had the most impressive start. JJ McCarthy is up there raising his stock, as well as Caleb Williams. Really all 6 of them did really good. There weren't too many flaws with all of them. They all came out and they looked comfortable, which is rare to see in a rookie class. Drake May probably sits at the bottom of the ladder, but again, he only got 1 drive. So we're not gonna dogpile on him too much. But I'm very impressed with this rookie quarterback class, and I'm excited to see what they do next week. We'll break down their weeks next week as well once we get more action from the rookie quarterbacks. Anyway, we're going to take a quick break here, and we're actually going to go head down to the college ranks here in our next segment. We're going to take a look at the AP Top 25. The preseason college poll came out today. We're going to go through it. We're going to see which teams were overrated, which teams are underrated. We're going to go through all 25 teams here from the first AP college poll. College football is right around the corner. I could not be more excited. So stick around for that. We'll be right back here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube. Absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube.
Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. If you were just tuning in, we just finished covering the rookie debuts of all 6 first-round NFL quarterbacks. They made their debut in the preseason yesterday, or over the weekend, I should say, all 6 of them. And for the majority of them, they all looked really, really good. I was very impressed by this rookie quarterback class. We also talked about in the first segment, we did a whole recap of the 2024 Paris Olympic Games for the U.S. We went over the clutch comeback for the U.S. women's team to tie up the gold medal count with China at the very end on the last day of competition. In this segment, though, we're going to head down to the world of college football, a season that is right around the corner. The AP put out its preseason top 25 today. We're going to go through it, see what I think of that list. But before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube at the GSMC Sports Network channel, there should be a super chat button right next to the chat option. If you hit that, same thing with the website. You can leave a message. That message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Monday afternoon. Like I was saying, we are going to go over the AP Top 25 list. If you agree or disagree with anything I'm saying, go and throw it in the chat. I'd love to have a discussion with you on this. But the first AP college poll has dropped. Preseason top 25 officially came out at about 12 o'clock today. And the number 1 spot goes to the Georgia Bulldogs. The Bulldogs get the number 1 spot, and that sounds right? The Georgia Bulldogs are a juggernaut, especially with the retirement of Nick Saban. There isn't really a true number 1, especially in the SEC, that is going to come and challenge them. And that's not to say that Georgia is this unstoppable force, this force that is 100% going to win the championship and go undefeated, because there's plenty of other teams even in the SEC that can give them a run for the money. Texas, we'll get to them in a little bit. LSU is going to have a good team. Alabama is still going to have a really good team. They brought in Pete DeBoer, who just won Coach of the Year over there in Washington. But Georgia is the top dog. They stay there. They are the number 1 team in the country. I absolutely agree with that. At number 2, again, I agree with this ranking, Ohio State. Ohio State is a team that I thought maybe even could be number 1. I love what they did. They brought in Will Howard. Michigan got a lot worse. This team is primed to win the Big Ten. I don't think there's another team that really should come close to them in the Big Ten. You can make the argument for Oregon, and we'll get to Oregon in a second, actually, but I think Ohio State is a much, much better team than Oregon is. If you look at what that team was last year, they returned almost all of their major players. A lot of them decided to come back for the extra season because of the disappointing string of losses to Michigan. Season obviously not ending where it wanted. You lose Marvin Harrison, but you do get a big upgrade at quarterback. Getting Will Howard in the transfer portal. So this is a great Ohio State team. They have Oregon at 3, and this is the first one I disagree with. Now, I think Oregon's great. They obviously had a great transfer portal class with all the money that Nike is giving them, right? And that helps a lot. But they lost a quarterback. I want to see what what this new offense looks like before I put them at 3. Now, that being said, I'm not going to drop them far. Me personally, I think I'd drop them at 4, swap them with the number 4 team that they have right now in there at Texas, who can give a run for the money. They made the playoffs last year, obviously. They returned returned their quarterback. A lot of their core is still there. This is going to be a really good Texas team as well. So Texas is at 4. I would swap them in Oregon so far. At 5 is Alabama. And I'm conflicted about Alabama because the big thing with them is obviously they lose Nick Saban. And that is a crushing blow. The loss of a head coach, especially in college football, kills your team in a lot of cases. Now, there's ways to make up for it. Obviously, they bring in Pete DeBoer. He brings a lot of guys over with him from a runner-up season, but it's not the same. It doesn't have the same Alabama feel at 5. I think it's rated a little bit too high. Now, I think they're a fringe top 10 team still, but I think 5 is a little high for Alabama as of right now. I want to see what that new culture, that new locker room culture looks like without Nick Saban. At number 6, they have Ole Miss, another SEC team. Ole Miss is going to be very good. I like that spot there. 7 is Notre Dame. Notre Dame always feels a little overrated to me, and there's no reason for me to feel that way, to be honest. This is a really good Notre Dame roster, but this Notre Dame roster just feels like 7 is a bit high for them. And the same thing with Penn State. Penn State always seems to be overranked. Now, Penn State, I think, should drop out just a little bit. Now, again, all of these teams are going to be great, but Penn State, Notre Dame, I just think are rated a little bit too high. I'd put teams like Florida State and Utah ahead of them, who are lower down on this list. Number 9, Michigan. That program is on the brink of falling apart. They lose not only their head coach, they lose their quarterback, they lose their running back, they lose their entire offensive engine. Sharon Moore has a lot coming down the tank as far as sanctions are. This team at 9 is too high. I think this team, while they won't fall off a cliff this season, this is not going to be anywhere close to a repeat kind of season that they expect. And I think that's about reasonable. A lot of Wolverines fans, I'm sure, won't debate me on this. I think this team obviously is worse than it was last season. If I'm wrong, come at me. Let me know. I just think this team is nowhere close to where it was last season, whether that be because of the head coach, the lack of returners, or the incoming NCAA sanctions that we've already started to see a little bit from the Jim Harbaugh era. Rounding out the top 10, they have Florida State. Florida State, I think, is solid at 10. I might put them up a spot or two over a couple of these teams, but Florida State at 10 is good. Missouri at 11, I don't have it up, but I think that might be the highest Missouri has ever been in a preseason poll, at least in the last 20 years. So that is incredibly impressive. I love this Missouri team. I think they were so close to making a run at the playoffs last season, but obviously a couple of tough losses there at the end kicked them out of contention. This is a Missouri team that can go pretty far, I do believe. Utah, at number 12. Utah's an interesting one. Cam Rising at quarterback, if he's healthy, it should be really good. But if he's healthy, is the thing. He basically hasn't played in 2 seasons. We don't know if he's going to be what he's going to be like. That defense is always solid. So Utah, I love them in the top 25 here. LSU at 13, yeah, that's good. Clemson at 14 honestly feels just a little smidge high. I might put them down to like 15 or 16. Tennessee at 15, I really do. I agree with. Oklahoma at 16 and Oklahoma State at 17. I might move Oklahoma State above Oklahoma. I do think those two rivalry schools are close there. Kansas State at 18. I like Kansas State's team a lot. I think they're probably going to come out of their conference there, so I do think I'd bump them up a bit. Miami at 19 also feels a little low. That At 20, Texas A&M, again, a team that's constantly overrated. I think they need to bump down a few spots. Arizona at 21, I think they're underrated. I think Arizona, led by Noah Fafita, is going to be really good this season. I'd bump them up a couple of spots, definitely at least ahead of Texas A&M. Uh, Kansas at 22, they're going to be good. I don't know if they're going to be top 25 good this season. USC at 23, I'm never going to doubt coaching abilities over there, right? They're just cranking out Heisman's, but 23 maybe a little overrated. I'd put 24 NC State above them at least, and 25 Iowa. That defense is going to carry them. I don't mind them getting a top 25 rating. I'm curious to see if they can get some offense going this season. Obviously, they haven't been able to get much going at all. But when we're looking at receiving votes, I thought it was interesting. Now, I'm not going to go through the list of every single team that received votes, but the two that stuck out to me were a couple of group of five schools. Liberty, for instance. And I don't know if I'm outspoken about this, but Liberty, I think they're so overrated. I think Liberty is the most overrated team in college football. And I think that goes back to last season as well. Liberty played the softest, most cupcake schedule that you possibly could. Their strength of schedule is literally dead last in the FBS, and they were the representative for the group of five, which I hate. I don't like Liberty. I don't think they're good at all. The other one that I thought was interesting, App State got some votes, and again, maybe this is a little biased here. I try to stay as unbiased as possible here at Sports by GSMC Podcast Network, but I'm a James Madison alum here, and I think App State's going to be a great team. I think App State's going to be great, and maybe that's part of why I don't like Liberty as well. But I think App State should be getting the more respect than it is. They only got 4 points in the other receiving votes polls, and I think they need to at least be above Liberty. Again, I think Liberty is so overrated. But shout out to those groups of 5 schools that are getting representation here in the preseason poll. That's always tough to do, to get respect when you're not in a power conference. But anyway, let me know what you think of this list of the preseason AP poll. I'd love to hear your thoughts. We're going to take a quick break here, and when we come back, we're going to take a look back into the NFL. The Tennessee Titans are up next on our list of every NFL team. We're going to take a look at their offseason, give them a grade. Then we're going to take a look at their record and give them a prediction. So stick around for that. We'll be right back here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. If you are just tuning in, we just finished going over the AP Top 25 preseason poll that dropped earlier today, went over what I agreed with and what I disagreed with. We also, earlier on in the show, talked about the rookie quarterback predictions, the first round rookie quarterback performances, from the first week of the preseason. All 6 of them played. All 6 of them did pretty solid, which was very impressive for me to see. And of course, with the Olympics wrapping up, we did a quick U.S. recap. All the big moments from the U.S. Going over the Olympics, where they tied for the most gold medals with China with 40 and took the total medal tally by a huge margin, 126 total medals for the United States. But in this segment, We're going to move into the world of the NFL. We're talking about the Tennessee Titans. We're going to take a look at their offseason, give them a grade, take a look at their draft, their free agency, their trades, anything, head coaching moves, anything that they might have done this offseason to see where we can put them as far as a grade goes. But before we get into that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube at the GSMC Sports Network channel, you can hit that super chat button. It should be right next to the chat option. If you do either of those, leave a message. That message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Monday afternoon. But like I was saying, in this segment here, we're going to turn our attention back to the NFL, take a look at the Tennessee Titans. And coming off of the college football talk, what better place to start than the draft? The Titans did not have the greatest draft. Now, I like the pick of J.C. Latham with their seventh overall pick in the first round. They grab J.C. Latham out of Alabama, the offensive tackle, big man, massive man, behemoth of a guy. He comes in from Alabama. He's going to switch over from right tackle to left tackle, be that blindside protector for Will Levis. It's going to be an interesting move. This was a deep offensive line class, and the top ones had already gone off the board at this point. J.C. Latham was a really highly touted prospect. Now, do I think he was the best one out there? No, but that doesn't mean he's not good. He was still graded, first round grade for me. Top 10 was kind of pushing it. I don't have my mock draft up, but I believe I had him go somewhere around 15 or so. But J.C. Latham should be and could be, with how big he is, a huge piece of a much improved offensive line from the Titans, something that was one of their biggest weaknesses. The only other big part of their draft, T'Vondre Sweat out of Texas, the big defensive tackle, should help with the pass rush. Again, the defense got a big lift from the draft as well as other things. The rest of their picks, those were the first two rounds. They had no third round pick. The fourth, fifth, they had a fourth, fifth, a sixth, and two seventh. Those guys we have to watch in the preseason. I don't expect many of them to make a big splash. Maybe Jaquan Jackson, the wide receiver out of Tulane that they picked in the sixth round, with the wide receiver depth that they have on that team. But they did recently go and fill that out after the draft, so I'm not sure exactly where his standing is. But we will have to see as far as the other Titans rookies go. The draft wasn't the greatest, but I do see a lot of upside in it. I think J.C. Latham has the ability to be the best, second best, I should say, tackle in this draft class. T'Vondre Sweat has the upside to be the best defensive tackle in the draft class, I think. But we will see where they pan out in their NFL careers. As far as the rest of free agency goes, I'll start off with one of the biggest change, and this is kind of a passing of the torch, a new era for the Titans, right? Mike Vrabel is gone. New head coach. They bring in Callahan from the Bengals. He was the offensive coordinator, over there. He didn't call plays, but lots of glowing reviews for him. Mike Vrabel is gone. Ryan Tannehill is gone. And maybe biggest and most importantly, Derrick Henry is gone. To replace Derrick Henry, they bring in Tony Pollard. They already have Tyjae Spears, who looked really explosive in his rookie season. Tyjae Spears is a guy that I think, especially splitting time with Tony Pollard, which is what it looks like he's going to do, could be a huge asset for the Titans. You take a look at what Tony Pollard's able to do when he isn't the lead back, the guy that gets all of the carries. It's so much more impressive than, obviously just the one season he just had. The Cowboys felt comfortable enough with him in a split share role to make him the lead back. But we saw how that goes. He is now a member of the Tennessee Titans. Outside of that, I mentioned the offensive line with J.C. Latham. They bring in center Lloyd Cushenberry. Lloyd Cushenberry was one of the best free agent centers in in the entire league. They bring him in, they shore up the offensive line. I was very, very impressed by what they did, especially to address the offensive line to help protect now second-year quarterback Will Levis. The weapons for Will Levis, we kind of talked about as well. They obviously had DeAndre Hopkins. He's injured right now, probably will be back for week 1 or 2, from what it sounds like, week 3 or 4 at the latest. But outside of him, it was kind of a weak class. Nick Westbrook-Akine was one of their best receivers. They went out and they had a mission to fix that. They go out and they sign Calvin Ridley, a 4-year, $92 million deal for Calvin Ridley after one of his down seasons, which still was over 1,000 yards, which for a down season is a pretty good season. Calvin Ridley should be able to bounce back to form opposite of DeAndre Hopkins, and he's going to get a little less attention. It should be pretty good for him. They also bring in one of the best slot receivers, maybe the best wide receiver 3 in the entire league, in Tyler Boyd. Tyler Boyd coming to the Titans, I should say, from the Bengals, rejoining with his offensive coordinator, now the head coach over with the Titans, should be a pretty great wide receiver core. They obviously still have first-round pick from a couple years ago, Treylon Burks, as a wide receiver as well. Chiggy Okonkwo at tight end. This is an offense that has all the weapons it needs to go. It all relies on Will Levis. And we saw some good and we saw some bad from Will Levis. We saw him throw a 4-touchdown game. We saw him come back from 14 points in less than 2 minutes. We also saw him be really, really bad at football. So we don't know what kind of Will Levis we're going to get. It's very important for the Titans' success this season to get the good Will Levis, obviously. Outside of that, on defense, I really liked their moves, especially in the secondary. The Titans went out and they traded for L'Jarius Sneed, who was one of the best cornerbacks in football last season. Signed him to a 4-year, $76 million deal. They also brought in Chidobe Awuzie, 3 years, $36 million, to shore up that defense, a defense that was pretty bad. Now they've went out and fixed that. It's much better. They also bring in Jamal Adams. They have Amani Hooker. It's a much better looking defense on paper. They still have Jeffrey Simmons, who is an absolute monster. They brought Tavondre Sweat in to be that big run stopper guy from the draft. Sebastian Joseph Day is not my favorite guy out opposite of those two, but that is a big front three. If you play base 3-4 defense, that is a huge. You just go on size alone. That's a terrifying line to go up against. The linebacker core could be better. They still have Harold Landry, who's pretty good. Kenneth Murray is they lose Al-Shaair, which is a little worrying, but outside of the linebacker core, the defense looks pretty good. I really like what they did in this offseason. They went 6-11 last year, though. So remember, improvements are improvements from a 6-11 team. I do like what they did. I thought they did a really good job with this offseason. I'm going to go ahead and give them a B+ for what they did this offseason. They shored up a lot of their holes. The defense, the secondary especially, looks a lot better. They went and got the offensive line fixed. You win in the trenches, right? Now, we have to see, it's still a bad offensive line. You bring in one piece that's going to be good. He goes down with injury, though, so we don't know when he'll be back. Hopefully, it's not too long. J.C. Latham, if he can come in and be an effective tackle in the NFL, should be huge for them. But the offensive line is still a question mark, and I'm leaning towards not great still for them. The linebacker core is not great, but the secondary is shored up, and they have all the weapons. So if Will Levis can continue to develop and not be a 50-50 guy, this team has the chance to surprise some people. But we'll find out exactly what I have them doing, if I have them going over or under the Vegas line of 6.5 games in our next segment. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we're going to go over their schedule, all 17 games, all 18 weeks, give him a preview of the Titans 2024 season and a prediction for their record. So stick around for that. We'll be right back here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. If you are just tuning in, we just finished going over the Titans offseason. I gave them a B+. They did a great job shoring up the defense, positions of need, the offensive line, surrounding a team that, in theory, could be successful around Will Levis. In this segment, though, we're going to take a look at their record. We're going to give them a record prediction, go through all 17 games, all 18 weeks, see if they have them making the playoffs in a tough AFC. But before we get into that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net, or if you are on YouTube, you can use the super chat, super thanks option. Either way, if you leave a message, that message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Monday afternoon. But like I was saying, we are going to finish off our show today here, taking a look at the season preview for the Tennessee Titans. Like we've done with everyone else, we're going to take a look at this schedule. Done the Jaguars and the Colts at the tail end of last week. This is a much tougher schedule than it was last season, a season where the Titans went 6-11. And while they did make improvements this offseason, like we just talked about in the last segment, I don't know if the improvements are drastic enough to make too much of a dent in it. This year, they have to go up against playoff teams and much improved teams such as the Jets, the Packers, the Dolphins. This division is going to be much better than it was last year as well if everyone stays healthy. Same thing with the Bills, the Lions. They have to take on the Texans twice. The Bengals are going to be much better. This is a much tougher team. This is a much tougher schedule than it was last year. So it's not going to be easy for the Titans, but they have the talent. If they had the same schedule as last year, I think they would definitely be a better team. But that's not the case. A week 5 bye also doesn't help too much for a team that has a couple of key contributors that are a little bit older. Down the stretch, it might hurt them. But we'll get right into it. Week 1, they take on Caleb Williams and the Bears on the road. Heading into Chicago, that is not an environment for the first NFL game of the career of Caleb Williams. After we saw him in the preseason, that stadium, he's going to be more than sold out. People will be climbing up the stadium, scaling it to see Caleb Williams play his first game in Chicago. That is not a good scene for the Titans to go into. They lose that game. The Bears take week 1 of the season. The Titans fall to 0-1. Week 2, they take on Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. Not an easy schedule there. They lose that game as well, falling to a quick 0-2 on the year. In week 3, they take on Jordan Love and the Packers, the new $55 million man. Jordan Love takes the win here on the road against the Titans. They fall to 0-3. Week 4 against the Dolphins on the road in Miami. Not an easy place to play in the heat of the summer there. The sun will bake the Titans. I think the Dolphins win this game. They fall to 0-4 heading into their bye week. A much needed bye week. Still a little bit of an early placement, but a nice place to be. 4 straight losses is not going to look good on this new coaching staff. But week 5, taking on the Colts at home. Off of a bye week. The players have just gone through a players-only meeting or something along those lines. They come out fired up. They win their first game of the season against the Colts in a division game, a division rivalry there for you. The Titans win their first game of the year, improve to 1-4. Week 7 against the Bills up in Buffalo. Not an easy matchup for anyone. The Titans are no exception. The Bills take care of business here. Felling the Titans, they fall to 1-5. Doesn't get any easier from there, folks. They take on the Lions, the defending NFC runner-ups. The Lions win this game as well, also in Detroit. The Titans fall to 1-6 through halfway through the season. Not a good point for where they are, but this has been a brutal stretch of schedule for them. It lightens up definitely a little bit in the back half, where in the front half they had to play all but 3 of the teams they played were playoff teams, and if you want to count the Jets as a playoff team because of the improvements that they have, the Jets are in there as well. That's the majority of their games were against last year's playoff teams. Down the stretch here, they go against teams that were picking in the top 10 in the Patriots and the Chargers and the Commanders, and this is a much easier stretch. So this is where they need to collect the wins, which is why I say having that week 5 bye hurts, because being able to prepare for a schedule down the stretch when you're going up against easier teams, I will say, it's not ideal. But week 9, taking on the New England Patriots, I do have them losing this game. They've come off back-to-back losses against the Bills and the Lions. This is a game that I think they have to win if they want to turn their season around, but I don't think they get it done. I think the Patriots win this game. The Colts fall to 1-7. Then they take on the Chargers on the road, and I do think they turn it around here, get a win against the Chargers and Justin Herbert, but not an easy game at all. Improved to 2-7 on the year. Week 11 against the Vikings. The Vikings have J.J. McCarthy in at this point. We saw what he did this preseason. I'm taking the Vikings to win this game against the Titans. The Titans fall to 2-8 on the year. Week 12 on the road against the Texans. C.J. Stroud takes care of business. They beat the Titans here. Hopefully they're not wearing the Houston Oilers stuff again. Against the Texans, but they fall to 2-9 on the year. Week 13 against Jaden Daniels and the Commanders. I think the Commanders win this game as well. It's nothing against the Titans. I don't think the schedule lines up very well for them. The Commanders win this game. They fall to 2-10 on the year. Then they get the Jaguars, division matchup. I think they take this one. A much-needed win for them, improving to 3-10. Doesn't get easy, though. Their last couple games, they get the Bengals, Colts, Jags, and Texans. 3 division games and the Bengals. Not a great spot to be in. But against the Bengals, week 15, Joe Burrow wins this game. We'll see if they can go against the division where anything can happen. They fall to 3-11 through 15 weeks. Then they get the Colts on the road. And as much as I want to give them a win, I think Anthony Richardson is going to be too much for that defensive line to handle. I love the pass rush of the Colts. I think the Colts win this game as well. They fall to 3-12. Then they get the Jaguars on the road in Duval County. I think the Titans fall once again. Fall to 3-13, not the place that they want to be. Last week of the season against the Texans. I do think they win this game, but I think that's a lot because the Texans aren't playing their starters right now. But they finish the season off at 4-13. Obviously, they miss out on the playoffs. I do have them getting, right now, They are the number 1 pick in the NFL. Now, this was a little bit harsh on the Titans, I will say. I think that 4-13 is definitely their floor, while their ceiling is probably somewhere around 7 to 8 wins. This is a team that if all the puzzle pieces click, if Callahan is able to come in and be the head coach that he is touted to be, it could turn it around. That's what it comes down to. I don't love the coaching hire. He's never called plays in his life, and he was an offensive coordinator, so I don't really know what he did over there with the Bengals. So I'm not too convinced about the head coaching hire. So I have them go 4-13. But there is a world where it's a great hire, knocks it out of the park, and they compete to win, to go 500 basically. That's the bad and the good with this Tennessee Titans team. But anyway, let me know what you thought of anything we talked about in today's show. I appreciate all of you guys taking time out of your day to sit down, talk some sports with me here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I have been your host, Jeremy Lapidus. I'll see you same time, same place tomorrow. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you then. You guys have a good one. Bye-bye.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool. I'm up to no feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Damn tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet. Damn it.